I'm Zug Von Rock from Angelspit. A frequency divider, or sub-octave generator, is a very simple circuit that will divide an incoming signal by 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, you get the picture. It's a cheap and effective way to make a single oscillator sound fat. I'm going to be focusing on the .com module from STG SOUNDLABS. It's available in the 3-unit high Eurorack version and the 5-unit high .com version. It actually has Eurorack power and .com power on the back of each module, which is really cool. The components and soldering is really tough, so you could tour the hell out of this thing. The .com is a sub-octave module. It outputs a signal 1 octave and 2 octave below the frequency that you put into it. So if you input a 440 Hz, it will output a 220 Hz, 1 octave lower, and a 110 Hz, 2 octaves lower. The sub-octave generator was made famous by Roland SH-101, whose sub-octave gives the synth its trademark fat sound. The .com is more than just a frequency divider. It's also a really cool pulse width modulator. Both 1 octave and 2 octave tones are output as a square wave and a pulse with an adjustable width. What's really cool is that these are plus or minus 5 volts. So you can use them as control voltages, like clocks or anything else needing a CV input. And a 5-volt output means that that bass sound is huge. The .com is a lot more ballsy than the SH-101, but more on that in a moment. Patch an oscillator into the signal input. This can be any shape. Most frequency dividers need a square wave, but the .com can take anything at all. The first output is a direct output, producing a square wave from the original frequency. But what's really cool, you can adjust the pulse width of this using the threshold knob, or by patching a control source into the threshold input. Any CV off a modular synth will drive that input. If you patch a triangle into the input, the threshold will adjust the phase of the output, which is really cool. Below this is a variable output. This one's threshold is adjusted as per the threshold input, whether it be the knob or a CV source. Next down is a square output. This is 1 octave below the original input frequency. Next, there's a variable output 2 octaves down. Once again, this one's pulse width is adjusted as per the threshold knob or input. Finally, square output 2 octaves below the original input frequency. A frequency divider can accurately track a regular synth line, but they can have trouble with a signal that uses lots of pitch bending and portamento. However, this weakness can be exploited as it outputs a nice little piece of chaos. For best results, always use a square wave. They track really well. For this demonstration, I'm taking a ramp wave out of one of the dope for oscillators, and I'm going to plug it in here. Here's my sub oscillator. Beautiful. I'm going to take my sub out. I'm going to go into the dope for A102. That one's filtered. So I'm just going to give it a really fat sub. So I'm going to take the direct out. There's me direct out. And I'll take the filtered version out of the dope file. And we can add some crazy, awesome modular melody to it. I have a sequencer and some other stuff off camera, so just trust me, it's here. Let's listen to it slide. See how well it glides. Yeah, that's great. So this is now 2 octaves lower. Man, that's pretty cool. So once again, I've got a ramp coming out of the dope fob, and it sounds like this. Great, love it. I'm going to put that tone through the diode. So this is now going into the dope for A102 diode filter. I'm going to modulate that sound with an octave below itself. the filter is actually modulating itself 1 octave below the tone, so it sounds like there's extra bass in there, but there isn't, which is a really cool way to keep your mix kind of clean if you ever need to keep the subs out, but you want it to sound like there's subs. Okay, for this one we're going to do something different, very, very different. I've got a random synth line coming out of the Dope4 MAQ16.3. That's driving the Dope4 Oscillator, which is now being subdivided. Actually, what you're hearing is the regular version. I am going to patch this guy here. Once again, I'm just going to patch it straight into the Dope4 low pass. Beautiful, beautiful. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to patch this guy here into the sub oscillator, so that's 2 octaves down. That's actually going into the Dope4 A155 sequencer. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to patch the output of that sequencer into the input of the filter. Right. What's going on here is that the sequencer is actually running at the clock rate 2 octaves below the frequency, which is kind of cool, where you get this really awesome random thing. Like, we can make it lower if you want. Isn't that just crazy? So you can use this thing as a clock divider. Awesome, huh? We know the sub-oscillator works really, really well with regular VCO tones, but what does it work with when you put an audio signal into it? What I've got going on here is a regular drum beat. It sounds like this. This is a straight up drum loop. So if we now run the output of that into the .com sub, it sounds like this. This is coming straight out of the direct output. Now that's fucking cool. Let's see what happens when we run the threshold. That is straight up wave shaping. That is awesome. Octave down sounds like this. And let's apply some threshold, pulse width modulating to it. That's fun. And 2 octaves is like this. God damn, that is awesome. That is sick. Okay, what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna take the direct out of that. So this is coming straight out of the sampler, and I'm gonna go into the trusty Dope4 A102 diode filter. Damn, I love a good diode filter. Sounds like this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the direct output. Now remember, this is a 5-volt signal, so this is going to screw with the CV. Let's see what happens. I'm going to be using this is the direct out to modulate this signal. I'll turn the frequency right down. It's kind of cool, weird. I'm going to give it some resonance. I love the resonant response on a diode filter. Let's try it an octave down. Dude, that's mad. That screaming is that's the self oscillator. That's crazy. 2 octaves down. That is awesome. Okay, so what happens if we use the pulse width modulated? That's really cool fun. Incidentally, STG makes a diode filter that I'm going to get my little greasy paws on, and I'm going to do a review on it soon because I love diode filters. It's called the Sea Devil. Apparently it's pure evil. I'm putting the sampler through a Doepfer A119 audio envelope follower, and it's going to shape the contour. We'll try something crazy as well. Let's see what it sounds like if I go into a bandwidth. Yeah, good fun. I think it's safe to say that the .com wasn't designed to do that, but man, that's a pretty fun wave shaper. It's a cheap and effective way to make a single oscillator sound fat. What is it with synth users and cats?